So, very good evening to everyone, and welcome in all about the 8 strategies. 8 different strategies for buying. They are between 45 minutes and 1.25 hours long. But I want to talk about the different strategies so you can get a good gist about exactly how they are working. So, let's have a look and let's start moving forward through our slides. I've developed I started property in 2004, and I've created 24 creative strategies to make property investment and property development up to 10 times more profitable than traditional investment strategies. These have been born out of need of either myself or my clients. Quite often we may have dropped in a problem and we've got out of it by being creative, and a new strategy was born. I can assure you I've tried many more than 24. I have 24 strategies that work successfully. Not all currently. Some of them work in booms like we're having at the moment, and some work in busts. But they all have been tried and tested by myself and many of my clients. So out of these 24, this evening I'm going to be sharing 8 with you. And after you watch this webinar, I don't think you'll ever think about property investment and property development in the same way again. Today, we'll open your eyes to an alternative, creative way of investing, in where during the webinar you will discover how you can make far greater profits from far less cash input than traditional investing. So really, you need to do this, and by the end of this webinar, I'm pretty sure you'll be raring to go. Now, why did I always love property? Well, not only do you get capital appreciation, you're also in the right area, obviously, but you also get leverage. Leverage is great because that means you don't have to put your own money down, or very little of your own money down. Now, what I've done is created strategies where you minimize the amount of input you have to put in financially. So basically, you're getting infinite yields because you're getting all your cash back out of deals. Okay, so 8 creative property investment, property development strategies: building a portfolio, no money down; building a high yield property portfolio, no money left in; flipping properties for profit; advanced property development; buying hotels and guest houses; delayed completions; rent to rent; property sourcing. I've created these 8 videos specifically, especially for anybody who's interested in any of these specific strategies. They are all between 45 minutes and an hour and a half long, or hour and a quarter long, and I'm going to share an overview of each of them this evening for you. Before I do that, I'd just like to share a little bit of my background. I've done different jobs and different businesses over the years, and I'm going to skip through this very quickly, where along the way I have accumulated different bits of knowledge that have helped me in my property business, my property businesses. So yeah, let me move into these and do them one at a time. Mechanical design engineer. In my 20s, I worked for GC Computers and then Marconi Avionics, doing college, which they paid for. And I actually, when I qualified, gave my notice in to do a mobile video library, which all the engineers thought was absolutely mad. So what I learned is when I tried to leave, everybody's like, get back in here. Why would you want to leave? Why would you want to do a business delivering videos out the back of a car in suitcases to people's houses when you're a mechanical design engineer? Well, the answer was I was earning 4 or 5 times the amount I was as a mechanical design engineer. So my advice is to everyone: if you want to succeed at something, only listen to somebody who's done what you want to do. Don't listen to what other people who haven't tried it, what they're saying. So let me ask you all a question, and please feel free to type stuff in the chat box. I will have a look at later. But if you would like to be giving up your day job, please feel free, just put something in there. I'm sure many of you, some of you might already be financially free and have given up your job, and some of you may well be wanting to do that. I know a lot of my clients, it's on the top of their list. When I started the mobile video library, it turned into 6 vans going out every night. Then I started opening shops. A bit of a long story. You can read about that in my book. What I did learn about opening video shops is all about marketing. And I used to do most of my marketing through newspapers and leaflets. Obviously, when I was negotiating for purchases of films direct from the film companies, like CBS, Fox, Warner's, all of them, they used to send their reps around every month. I learned more and more about negotiation and ended up, when I had 15 video shops, being one of the top 100 video shop owners in the UK. In fact, I was in the top 30. And CBS Fox took us on a trip to Hong Kong and Bali to recognize that fact, which was really cool. 15 shops later, I sold out for quite a nice sum of money, 1.5 million. Now, what I learned is I opened 2 shops. They were okay. They were doing not too bad. And then what happened is they really started doing well when I introduced one specific thing, which was 3 films for 2 nights for £5. That just seemed to hit the magic button. Boom, I was off. And then I times 10'd it. So I opened another 13 video shops, all fairly quickly, specifically to sell out. Long came Video Store PLC, part of Binetton, offered me a big chunk of cash. Most of it I took in shares. Now, I'd always recommend that you don't take money in shares. Binetton was quite a secure company, but Video Store PLC was an offshoot of that. Many businesses have a shelf life. Okay, like technology comes in, takes it away, whatever it may be. So would you agree that property is something that doesn't have a limited shelf life? Because that was a major consideration for me when I got into it, having been in this business that had a limited shelf life. And that was me after I sold out my business for 1.5 million, age 29, great Lotus Esprit Turbo, 5-bed detached house. And there we go, I was on £5,000 a year when I left Marconi to be able to do that. It shows you how many years ago it is, really. So there we go. While I was waiting for the shares to mature, because it was great over the 3 years, the first 2 years they doubled in price. So I was looking at £2 million of shares, selling them in 1 year's time. I started car trading, and what I found is that auctions were no good because I was competing with the members of public, and that's the same now with property auctions. I was buying a lot of my cars for stock from dealer part exchanges. That stopped. All the garages had to run to BS3, whatever it was, not that word, but British standards, and that eliminated dealing with car traders. So I only succeeded in buying stock cheap enough by advertising in the local paper, like Cash Paid for Cars. So I learned all about that, buying cars. And again, very, very importantly, I negotiated on the cars that I bought, because I made my money from buying them at the right money and selling them on at a profit. So I spent hundreds of hours at the coalface and developed a process for that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. Results of this business is I steadied it out at around about £3,000 per week profit, which was cool. Had to work a lot of hours. It wasn't passive, you know, always permanently in search of stock, etc. And then Video Store PLC went into receivership. Boom, video shops went, cash all went, and interest rates went up to 14%. And oh my God, that was horrible. When Video Store PLC went bust, so did all of my shares, and I was back to scratch. Having over a 7-year period built up £1 million business, it was back to the drawing board for me. I ended up having to taxi drive, which was horrible. I started renting a car, 80 quid a week it was. Great when I was doing trips and negotiating deals with people when it was cold, especially late at night when they were coming out of the nightclubs. But enough of that. I started renting cars out to drivers who didn't get credit. Most of them didn't, and they'd work just enough hours to earn the money. The 100 quid they went home after they got 100 quid, whether it was raining or not. Never ever thought about get ahead money. So I worked a lot of hours to get my get ahead money to start buying cars for £3,000 to rent out to drivers for £125 a week. Why would they pay me £125 a week when you could rent for 80 quid? Well, because I gave them an option to buy the car at the end for £1. So it was like a reverse lease option. They were leasing the car off me for £125 a month. Then they had the option to buy it at the end for £1. That was my first bit of financial engineering that I did with the taxes. I ended up with 30 cars, bringing in £3,000 per week, totally passive because I paid somebody to run the whole thing. So how would you like to be earning £3,000 per week passive? Because that's the only other time, apart from doing property, where that's been possible. And I don't think that's possible anymore because the way things have changed in the taxi business. So would you like to learn how to creatively engineer deals to make money? That's exactly what we're here to talk about. And you can see from my history exactly how I've learned this stuff. Then I looked around for something to do that wasn't having a shelf life, because I realized that computer games, when I started them, were going to have a shelf life. But, I started what I thought was a mail order company, but it turned and morphed into a computer wholesale company. And within 3 years of starting that business, I turned it into a £12 million turnover business. I became official sole distributor for Capcom, who had the Resident Evil series, and I was UK distributor for Nintendo. I was distributor exclusive for a lot more companies than Capcom, and UK distributor for a lot more companies than Nintendo. Put all my eggs in one basket, started selling to some big companies, and when Woolworths had their credit line reduced because I was factoring my debt, I got hit with a 250 grand deficit, and that was a problem. So I decided to try and find something that wouldn't have this shelf life. So I got into property investment 2004. Now, when I first got into property investment, I was looking for that elusive deal that would give me that great yield. I tried looking in Stoke-on-Trent. I bought a couple of properties up there and didn't particularly like doing that. Going around the agents was a waste of time. They basically were telling me in no uncertain terms where to go when I was putting in my offers that worked, because I wanted to buy below market value. I didn't want to pay market price. So I turned to the cash paid for adverts I've been doing for cars. It's at this time I did cash paid for properties, and amazing, started getting some great calls. I was able to buy 6 properties fairly quickly, but I run out of cash. Now, again, over the years, I have, when I replied or had people reply to the advert, had hundreds and hundreds of negotiation processes with people to buy their properties. I went to my solicitors and I said, look, I bought these 6 properties. I've run out of money. I need to refinance them. No one will do it for 6 months. What can I do? So I paid the solicitor £2,000. She went through all of the different companies that actually sold mortgages, all the different contracts. And she came back and said, Glenn, do you know what? Birmingham Midcharge will allow you to refinance your properties as soon as they are registered at land registry. It normally takes about 4 weeks. So I was able to refinance my 6 properties, get more than what I started with after the refinance, and great, I was up and running. BM was a bit hit and miss because sometimes the valuations, if they found out what I paid for them, they wouldn't value them at what next door had sold for in worse condition a few weeks ago. That was horrible. And then they actually introduced me to Mortgage Express. And when they introduced me to Mortgage Express, that was like, wow. And I'm going to share with you exactly how Mortgage Express works. So how did Mortgage Express work? Well, they allowed you to reapply to refinance a property that you hadn't yet bought, on the condition that you bought it first before you refinanced it, even if it was only for 1 minute. So with my solicitors, what they used to do, I used to get the survey done, get the valuation done. So this particular property valued at 140, I bought it for 100, pretty much that's pretty standard thing I was doing back then. And the vendors, using my nibbling technique of negotiation, agreed to sell it to me for 100. So I applied to refinance it with Mortgage Express. Mortgage Express said, okay, yeah, it's worth 140. We'll lend you 85% of that, which I did then. 85% of that is 119. So my solicitors would buy it cash from my bridging company. So they took the money out of my bridging company, the 100 grand, which sat with them, and bought the property. They'd already drawn down the mortgage from the building society, but the building society wanted me to buy it first. So within a minute of me buying it cash, we drew the money down into my account. The bridge was paid back, and I was sent the difference, 19 grand, less the stamp, less the other bits and pieces. So every time I bought a property, I ended up with more cash in my pocket, and it was amazing. So again, if you would like to think there was going to be another Mortgage Express out there, please feel free to type something in the chat box, and I'll have a look at that later on. At the end of the webinar, I'll look through the chat box and see what questions I can answer for people. So please feel free, any questions, put them in the chat box and I'll get them answered at the end. So new Mortgage Express, do you know what? There is a lot of companies that if you use the right financial engineering, you can do exactly this. Okay, so and I'm going to share a little bit about that with you in over the next hour or so. Now, my first buy-to-let deal that ever happened that came from my advert was absolutely amazing. So what actually happened for my first buy-to-let? Well, he replied to the advert. I actually went around to see him. He asked me in. It was a nasty ground floor flat, studio flat, in a block of 200 or 300 flats. Ex-local authority, wasn't easy to mortgage. He told me that the estate agents had told him the flat was worth 60 grand, which he thought was a load of poppycock, and it hadn't sold because they tried to sell it, and every time they couldn't get a mortgage, they didn't go with the right mortgage company. So we looked around. He said, look, I think it's worth 30 grand. And then we went into the bathroom and went in the kitchen. They were both horrible. He said, look, I've got grills on the windows to stop the kids coming in when I have the windows open, and, you know, and so my cats can come in and out still. And bless him, he turned around and said, you know what, you can have it for 25 grand. So I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. A 60 grand flat for 25 grand. So I said, okay, that's fine. And he said, oh, just one other thing. My boss, I've actually officially retired, but he wants me to keep working for him. I don't know whether it's going to be for 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, maybe a year, I don't know. But I'd like to rent the property back off you, something you can't do anymore, but you could then. And he offered me £5,000 for the year, and basically said, when I buy the property off him for 25 grand, he'll give me 5 grand back for the rent. So in effect, I was paying 20 grand for a 60 grand flat. That was my first deal. I thought it was all my Christmases come at once. I had many similar deals because I was marketing for property and not going through estate agents. My results once I got going was buying 52 properties in 48 weeks. I ended up being invited after I'd done that to speak at Excel Property Exhibition. I thought I'd be speaking to about 40 people. I ended up in a room with 400 people, and I was terrified. I'd never really public spoke before. So I was like, oh my God. And anyway, I stood up in front of the 400 people, started speaking, talking about the Mortgage Express same-day refinance. Got to the bit about, and I like to apply to refinance the property before I buy it. And this bloke stood up at the back of the hall in a booming voice, so 399 heads turned round to look at him. You can't do that. I should know. I'm a solicitor. And everyone then looked back at me. And I went to him, do you know what? You're right. Most building societies won't allow it. That Mortgage Express will. And if you go into their terms and conditions, page this, section this, and I used to know that off by heart, you'll find out that you can actually do it with Mortgage Express. And then you can start, you know, acting that for doing that service for your clients. And then you'll become one of the solicitors making money from it. And that was me going, phew, thank goodness for that. Using this system, I bought 140 properties in 3 years, then the recession hit. I got into quite a bad place, actually. 100 grand in rent arrears. Wasn't running a portfolio right, I was buying it too quick. Interest rates went up to 5.75%. No mortgages were available when the recession hit to anybody who had lots of properties. So looked at the whole situation, employed someone who knew what they were doing when it came to housing benefit tenants and running tenants and rents, paid them the money. Even then, I think it was like 35 grand a year. They turned the whole business around. Over the next few years, I bought more properties. Interest rates dropped straight down. And I ended up with 243 properties that in 2015 were generating £100,000 profit per month. How's that for a passive income? Big snag. Again, I put all the properties in my ex's name. Never ever thinking there was a problem because we were married. Don't you believe it? It has caused me all sorts of headaches recently. It's taken me over 5 years and I've not succeeded in getting my half, but hey, onward and upward. So mistakes is definitely that. And if anybody got any questions on that, please feel free to ask. So at one point, I was actually the 8th largest sole trader housing benefit landlord in the UK. There was a bit of a fuss in the local paper created it about who was receiving what after it was revealed that one city landlord was paid over 650 grand, and yes, it was over 800 grand actually. But hey, I like that because it was just a bit of fun, really. It was a great, almost made me feel good, because at the end of the day we were helping people and renting out houses to people who through housing benefit. So I then started my training business, trying to help people to copy it, and I was very frustrated that I could teach a room of 40 people the same thing, and 2 or 3 or 4 of them would go and do it successfully, a few of them would do it okay, and a lot of people give up very quickly, and that really frustrated me. I did actually learn that not all areas worked for what I was teaching. Started running a company called Repossession Angels, where there was 40 people all clubbed together with a budget. So we was marketing in the Red Tops, the Sun, the Mirror every day. I learned a lot about that. Different days that worked better, which was weird. And we were also doing pay-per-click advertising. We were spending about 20 grand a month on each. And any leads that came from anywhere, went to the person who owned that area. So, hey, frustrated that I was, because I could teach people the same thing in the same room, and some would be successful and some wouldn't. I'd started reading hundreds of books, all on motivation, psychology. I spent over 100 grand learning about it, learned how to teach in a way that was understood, and learned button pressing, so psychology of getting the best out of people by getting them to goal set. It is so important. Every single one of my millionaires, and I've had 92 clients become millionaires now, many of them starting off with not a lot, and I've got hundreds and hundreds that are financially free. The more goal setting I introduced into it, the more successful they were, and all of my millionaires clients do goal setting all the time. What I know is, if becoming successful, getting a better income, becoming financially secure is important to you, you will find a way, or you'll be making excuses. It's just human nature. And, part of my learning curve, that reading all these books on psychology. So first of all, I'd like to share with you the 4 essential steps to achieving your goals, whatever you're doing. And it is all very much about understanding what your goal is. When you know what your goal is, you can then work out how much you need. When I say how much you need, this was my first Ferrari I bought. It was 130 grand. I didn't need 130 grand. I actually needed a £6,000 deposit and 2,050 a month. So I bought 3 HMOs to generate the income to pay for the monthly payment. Very much a la Rich Dad Poor Dad. You use your cash for your assets, especially when you can recycle it all back out again, get all your money back out, like we're going to share with you tonight. Recycle all your cash back out and use the income from your assets to generate enough to pay for your toys. And then finally, part 3 is once you know how much you need, you can then create a business plan. So once you can work out the strategy to achieve the amount of money that you need to be able to live your goal. And then part 4, the final bit of the 4 essential steps to achieving your goals. And this applies to any business, anybody, is the daily actions that you need to take to make it happen. No procrastination if you know what you've got to do. And that's important. And often people get stuck within trying to do things because they don't know what to do. And that's something I like to make sure is totally clear with my clients. So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're definitely right. Henry Ford had a big point there, and it is so true. And that is it. Mindset is so important as part of what we do. So let's have a look at the strategies. I'm not going to go through the list again right now. We're going to go through them one at a time. What I will say is your choice of strategies will depend on several factors. First of all, how much time you have. Reason being, because some of the strategies only work in some towns. So if you don't have enough time to travel, you're going to have to use the strategies that work in your town, not just the strategies you'd like to be doing. So it does depend on where you live. It also depends on the cash pot that you've got, because some of the strategies need more cash than others. Some don't need any. And it also depends on your end goal. And also making sure that your focus stays focused by only sticking to 2 to 3 strategies. I recommend 2 strategies if you're working, 3 strategies if you're financially free, got more time to do things. And I like to help you choose the strategies to make sure you get it right, so you're not wasting your time on something where you get fed up after a few months and go round in circles and spaghetti head, what I call. So it's a good idea to understand all 8 of the strategies, but then choose the best 2 or 3 for you based on your preferences and the above information. So building a strategy, building a portfolio, no money down. Okay, let's have a look at the overview of that. Again, I've done a video that's over an hour long on this. I've created that, is available. So first of all, if you're going to build a property, no money down, you need to decide that you want to build a portfolio, and you need to know your why. That's essential. Then you need to choose an area. Not all areas work for different things, especially this, and I'm going to explain more details later. Then we look at marketing into the area. So we market into the area we used to do leaflets and newspaper adverts. That's changed, and I'll talk about that in a little while. Then we look at the negotiation process and actually locking out the deal, which is the paper process to make sure people can't sell to anybody else. Then we're going to look at the buying process, the team that you need, the brokers, the solicitors, all that to buy and use the no money down process that I've financially engineered and learned for everybody. So why? Sorry, I've got a helicopter flying over. Why is it essential to buy your property's BMV? Well, you'll never be able to buy a large property portfolio quickly by investing using traditional methods, and especially buying through agents, because they retail properties. They are there to get the best money for people. Okay, you're not going to get trade deals there. You can't go to auctions because that ain't going to happen, because other people are there that want to buy them properties that, anyway. Traditional investing, all you're doing is swapping cash for cash flow and waiting for capital appreciation. So unless you're Robbie Fowler earning 30 grand a week and buying 5, 6 grand properties in Liverpool, your capital's going to run out very, very soon. In the 2004 market, which is very similar to now, I started to visit agents trying to buy below market value. It was definitely a seller's market, just like now. Visited agents, made offers, got told where to go. As I said earlier, Stoke-on-Trent, trying to chase high yields. I did end up buying 2, pain in the arse. Then I remembered the cash paid for cars adverts I'd be doing and started doing property adverts. So cash paid for property adverts, bringing in the deals that I mentioned. Okay, so choosing an area, okay, which is part 2 in the 5-step process to buying a portfolio, never running out of money. Crucial to choose the correct area. Milton Keynes, back in the day, I was literally buying properties worth 110, bottom end of the 3-bed market, so mainly ex-locals. They rented out for 750. I was buying them for 80, so that was cool. In Ipswich, I had 2 of my clients who were struggling, and I couldn't understand why they were struggling because they seemed fairly intelligent, fairly switched on ladies, and it turned out that the numbers in Ipswich were different. And that's why it's still the case. Different areas have got different numbers. In Ipswich, the bottom end of the market properties weren't 110 like in Milton Keynes, they were 120, and they weren't renting out for 750 like they were in Milton Keynes, they were renting out for 550. So totally different dynamic in Ipswich. And then you go to Bristol, where 2 of my first Millionaire clients were trading, and the reason why they were trading successfully is because they could buy 3-bed properties down there for around 80 grand. They were buying them below market value for 60, but they were renting out for £800 a month. So, Bristol was by far the best place at that time for buying properties. Everything's obviously changed now, and I'm here to help you choose the right areas if you wish. Correct marketing. Used to be newspapers and leaflets. Now we did pay-per-click with Repossession Angels, no Facebook then. Now you need to pay a marketing expert a monthly fee, otherwise you're going to get it wrong. But now Facebooks and pay-per-click is pretty much the way to go for doing these things. Step 4 is the correct negotiation process. Nibbling, phone call, and again, so when I used to phone people's adverts for cars, I used to ring up, and it used to be, let's say it's advertised for 3.5, and I'd actually ring up and say, look, I've only got 3 grand to spend. Would you be interested in accepting 3 grand? And some people said yes, and some people said no. But if they accepted it on the phone, I went round to see it. That meant the negotiation started from 3 grand, 3.5. So we do something very, very similar when it comes to people who ring from the cash paid for property adverts. So make sure when you go to see them that you're bang on time, that you're dressed correctly, not overdressed, not underdressed, and you have a reasonable car, not a horrible car, not a too flash car. And you need the right paperwork to lock out the deal. So that is step 4. And finally, in fact, yes, let's have a look at this. Nigel is a professor of psychology and teaches negotiation. And this is what he had to say about my negotiation process when we went to see a vendor with him. As I do with some of my clients, I don't normally go and see them unless they're private clients, but I do help my clients negotiate with vendors by being on the end of the phone. So let's have a quick look. I'm just going to play with you this 2-minute video. This is Nigel, professor of psychology, teaches negotiation to large companies. So let me just play this video for you just very quickly.
Nigel would have loved that. Nigel, could you share you?
I am a chartered psychologist. I spend most of my time coaching chief executives and directors of big businesses.
I think the bit you've got is you're also a professor in that.
Yes.
Professor.
We have a round of applause for our professor.
I got a tap on my arm when I was talking about the alligators when tapping me now to say shut.
And Nigel challenged the 1.2 million value. Now we both knew it's worth about 9,950. But he challenged directly to the vendor saying, well, we know it's not that worth. It's not worth that. The vendor went, what do you mean? Let's not worry about the value. Let's talk about that at the end.
Yeah, brilliant. And it only took us one tap and looking one side, I got it. Negotiations. Let me just say something. If you have a complex deal or even a deal that takes you up to your comfort zone, don't try and handle yourself. Call Glenn, let him do it for you. I've studied psychology and also some soft skills in psychology. That's my field, performance psychology. I've been doing it for 30 years. I've written loads of books on subject. So I know all the theory of negotiation. And notice I said, I know all the theory of negotiation. This man knows the practice of negotiation. And I said,
I just watched a masterclass unfolding in front of me. every time the vendor came back with some crap, and most other people would have thought, you know what, this guy's just not with it, I'm out of here. Glenn's just calm, cool, accommodating, compassionate, empathetic, and he was eating at the palm of your hand by the end of the time, wasn't it? It was a masterclass. It was brilliant. So use his resource. If he says, call me because I can handle the negotiation, he's serious and he's brilliant at it. Use it.
Okay, so let's jump back on with the presentation. Just bear with me for 2 seconds while I get back to where we were. Okay, so yeah, when it comes to negotiation, I'm here to help you succeed. So step 5, create a buying process. Brokers, solicitors, it's very important that you have your own team of experts in order that you can achieve the goals that potentially you can achieve through the strategies that I teach. My team's been put together for years, architects, tax consultants. How would you like to be introduced to my power team as and when you need to be? Again, any feedback on here would be really cool. Okay, so what else do you need to know? First of all, if you were doing leaflets back in the day, not all areas worked. One of my clients spent over £20,000 doing leaflets in North London, never worked. He actually got a smart car and he was driving around in London all the time. Very seldom got a phone call, cash paid for properties all over his car. Drove to Liverpool, he got loads of calls over the few days he was there. So it's important that you know when you're doing marketing that you do it in the right area, that you're doing it in one of the lower value areas and not in the higher value areas if you're looking to buy below market value. One of my clients recently was in our BNV members club. He actually managed to buy a property or secure a deal with a property value of 130. He agreed a purchase price for 105 using all the processes that I teach, 25 grand below market value, rented out at £700 in the end. So a big boom there. He was a happy chappy. Not actually his picture on it, picked that one, but he was a happy chappy because he sold that deal to someone else for 3 grand. Which he was very happy with. So that's buying below market value and no money down. So there is a process that you can buy a property without actually buying no money down. Right, strategy 2, and that's actually in full in the video, by the way. Strategy 2, buying a high yield property portfolio, no money left in. What's the potential? So Stuart, pictured here, basically was buying properties 40, 50 grand, certain areas where it works, refurbishing them, refinancing them, getting all his money back out, renting them out as HMOs. He started his first year with 100 grand in his pocket. He ended up at the end of the year with, I think it was 10 properties and 135 grand in his pocket, and he went on holiday and he bought a car. So if you do this right, you're never going to run out of money. You do need money to start with because you need to be able to buy the property. And the key with this is his properties that he buys in a year that make him £700-800 a month. So he buys 10 a year, 7 grand a month income off these 10 properties, 3 years running. If he bought 10 a year, that's 30 properties. That's over £20,000 a month profit and not a bad lifestyle. So if you got this right in the right town, the potential is huge if you've got a little bit of money to work with. If you haven't, there's always people that would fund you to do it and go halves on everything, I'm pretty sure. So I've introduced lots of clients to lots of clients, ones with money that haven't got time and ones with time that haven't got money. Then we got flipping properties for profit. I'm not a fan of this. It's hard to find deals, very hard, okay. There's a few things that you need to take into account: the average time to sell in a specific area, type of properties you want to buy, and the cost of buying and selling. Just very quickly to give you a rough idea, you're buying and selling 100 grand property using bridging, it's going to cost you about 13 grand over an 8-month period. 200 grand property, it's going to cost you 30 grand over an 8-month period. And 300 grand house is going to cost you over 50 grand if you're bridging over an 8-month period. Now, that means you have to buy a house that's worth 400 for 300 because it needs work, and do the work. And once you've done the work, sell it, but you're only going to make 20 grand. And it's almost impossible to buy a 400 grand house for 300 grand. So you've got to be working in the cheaper end of this spectrum for it to work. If you want to get a bit creative and work in the higher value markets, then you need to use delayed completions. I'm going to explain a little bit more about delayed completions in a while. This property was called the Freckles. I exchanged with 12 grand. The bloke was in arrears, paid his arrears off, spent 40 grand on a refurb. Completion price, I agreed the price with him at 310. He'd been trying to sell it for 450 for a long while, gradually dropped down to 350. Still wasn't selling. I paid him 310 for it. I could see what needed doing and why it wasn't selling. Again, in my video on delayed completions, I explained more about that particular deal. Profit on that, I made 125 grand. I didn't buy it. I didn't have to pay stamp. I just spent 12 grand on exchange, 40 grand on a refurb, 52 grand, and made 125 grand. If you'd like to be doing that sort of thing, then my delayed completion video is the one for you to watch. That was the kitchen, looked a bit dark, and that was the kitchen after we finished it. Been on the market for 2 years. We sold it in 3 weeks after we finished the refurb. So there we go. If flipping properties, again, another variation of flipping them successfully rather than just a straight flips is title split flips. Mark did one in his first year, made 99.5 grand, buying a bungalow, building an extension on it, splitting it into two. Did it again in his following year. He actually started with 20 grand redundancy, 19.5 grand his first deal, 116 grand his second deal. Actually bought himself an Aston Martin, which was on his Y list. I have a book where I've written up the stories and the journeys of some of my millionaire clients. Mark's not a millionaire yet. He's quite a long way on towards it. And his journey is detailed in my book. So this is one of my projects, converting a 7-bed bungalow into 4 times 2-bed apartments. I purchased it for what, 175. It was actually on the market for 250. Big square footage, badly laid out. Long story, it's in my delayed completion video. 43 grand from the deposit, spent 60 grand on the work, splitting it into 4. Now that's very, very cheap. I employed one person to do it full time. So he did finish one, we rented it out, we used that subsidy of the rent to do the second one. When that was finished, we used the subsidy of the rent for the other 2. So I only actually put 60 grand of my own money in, plus the rents I'd collected. Ended up with 4 properties worth 500 grand. When I refinanced it, I was able to borrow 375 grand, which left me with the 4 properties with 125 grand equity in. The 375 remortgage money paid off the mortgage that I originally took, gave me my deposit back, paid back the cash I used for the refurb, and gave me an extra 140 grand on top. So who likes the idea of ending up with 4 properties making £400 per month profit and 140 grand more than what you started with? That's the type of thing you need to be doing if you want to be really successful. And that's the type of thing I can help you to do. Now, advanced property development. Now, this actually, when you get into property development, actually takes more cash. I'm just going to give you a rough idea. One of my clients is doing, his name's Jamie. These are projects that he's done. Buying his primary idea is to actually add more flats on the roof, and that's what he does. So he buys properties and creates more space on the roof, and that's where he makes his profit. So that's the first deal in Spitalfields of the 4 that I've spoke to him about at great length. Adding a top on this one in Bloomsbury. This one in Soho was a bit of a problem. You can see the bit he added on the top, but underneath was a big problem with the basement. And this particular property in Shoreditch. So yeah, this is the type of stuff you could be doing. Gonna need money to do it. He does borrow it off of high net worths. There we go. And again, I explain how he borrows his money in the advanced property development video. Typical deals that you could be doing at the moment: you pay £1 million for the land, you spend £1 million on the build, you make £1 million profit. It takes about 14 months for the whole cycle. That type of deal is quite out there. They are available to do. So different levels are catered for in the different strategies, but advanced property development takes and eats the most money. Buying hotels and guest houses, actually, this is one of the ones that need the least amount of money. Let me explain. A property that I bought in Wisbeach. My business partner paid £1 for the option to buy it at £219. He paid £300 for the change of use, so therefore he invested £301 to this deal. I came along after he got change of use, after he'd got the license on the property, which he paid for out the rent with the deal we did with the landlord before we bought it, but after we'd exchanged, we went from the option to the exchange with £1. £700 for the valuation I paid. It valued at 325. Bank offered to lend me 243. Process was put 82 grand in, 243 mortgage. The vendor got 325 grand sent to his solicitor. My bank were happy to value at that because although there was an option on it at 219, that was as a guest house, not as an HMO. So yeah, what I then did, what the solicitors did is sent the owner the 219 grand and sent my business partner the difference because he sold it to me for 325. They sent him 106 grand. My business partner then sent me the 82 grand that I paid on the deposit. So now I'm into it for nothing. Okay. And he's into it for £301. We then had 24 grand left, which we put in our joint bank account. I added him as a director and a shareholder. We had 24 grand in the bank for something that we'd bought. How much have we spent on this by that time? Not a lot. In fact, we got 24 grand more than what we started with, and the property generating us £1,500 a month, which we split. So this type of thing is possible if you know what you're doing. That's in the on buying hotels and guest houses, no money down. One of my clients is actually doing exactly that. His name's Stuart. He's actually my 92nd client to hit millionaire status. And he sent me this email. Hi Glenn, hope all is good with you and the family. Sorry I've been off the radar for the last couple of months. We've had our third son, now I have a 3-year-old, 1-year-old and a 2-month-old, and business has been flying. Had my hands full, so to speak. Just wanted to say thanks for the guidance, support and mentorship so far. The results have blown me away. When we initially spoke about 12 months ago for my induction and goal setting, which is something I do within the mentoring, I was earning around 5 to 6 grand income from property. I've been in property for a while and I've made loads of classic mistakes along the way, losing a fortune through bad choices and lack of education and support. You asked me to set my horizons, so I had something to aim for each week, month. 12 months in and I'm more than achieving my 2-year horizon results. Wow. Cash flow is now 24 grand a month and will be over 30 grand with the current projects complete. And this is all doing this no money down recycling, using vendor finance. There's other ways of doing it to what I've just explained, and I'll explain more in the next few deal examples. The introductions to your team has been amazing, made huge tax savings, increased capital gains allowance from your tax advisor, plus used the proposed mortgage broker on multiple deals, and he's come up with many great products every time. I was in a difficult place before joining the Property Millionaire Academy due to previous poor choices in property. Your mentorship has helped turn that around. I'll be forever grateful. So will my family. Thanks again and look forward to moving to the next level. Magnum of Lauren Berrier is on its way. Now that is something that my clients, when they hit millionaire status, do. They buy me a bottle of champagne so I can measure how many clients I've got that are millionaires. I've had 90 bottles of champagne so far, Costa Coffee and an IOU, and I've been trying to pin him down for a long while, get my champagne. 92 clients are millionaires. That's something I am so proud of. Heading towards 100. I want to make, before I retire, 200 millionaires. That's my target. Maybe, just maybe, one of them. So vendor finance deposits. Using financial engineering, you need very little cash to rapidly accelerate your monthly cash flow. Doing what Stuart's doing what Ian's doing. Ian was a property millionaire when he came to me, had an HMO portfolio in Brighton, making 10 grand a month cash flow profit per month. He'd been on a 4-year holiday. He wanted to increase his turnover to 20 grand per month. 6 years later, working with me, he is now making over 52 grand per month profit. And he's expanded his portfolio using vendor deposits. Let's explain one of his deals. This property in Eastbourne was on the market for 840 grand. It was valued at £1 million on a cash flow mortgage, which the owner didn't realise. It wasn't selling at 840. Realistically, he probably would have got 760, 780 for it. We offered him £1 million on condition he reinvested 250 grand into the company that bought him, and it's received that back at 1 share per month or 2.5 grand a month. So basically, Ian bought the property for £1 million, put the 250 grand deposit in. That went to the seller's solicitors. He received his £1 million. He then reinvested 250 back into Ian's company, buying 250 shares, which Ian, after the first 6 months where he started doing the property up, out of the whole cash flow, started paying him back interest-free over 100 months. He would have paid him all his money back. That actually means that Ian was bought something out of nothing. He's bought it without putting a deposit in. Yes, he's paid a bit of stamp duty, but he's making a huge cash flow profit from that very large, what was a hotel. The vendor had already turned it into an HMO. Ian just tidied it all up and is basically doing really well out of it. He managed to acquire a house in France. He took over a mortgage from someone just by taking up the payments every month. The mortgage was worth the same as what the house was, so Ian just took over the mortgage, didn't have to buy it. The monthly payments are quite reasonable. He rents out Airbnb and it makes a huge profit for Ian every month. This property he bought for himself, still rents it out on Airbnb. Gross development value when he finished it was 2.5 million. He paid, it was on the market for 950. Ian actually paid £1.05 million for it, providing the bloke lent him 250. And basically he then did it up, refinanced it, got over 100 grand back out of the whole deal. And that place rents out and makes him over 20 grand a month when it's all flowing on Airbnb. It's right in Brighton. It is an amazing looking house and it's just an amazing job he's done on it. So that's the type of things you could be doing if you were buying hotels and guest houses, etc., etc. And you don't need a lot of money to do it. Delayed completions, my favourite. I've got 5 or 6 deals to go through with you on this. They are very, very exciting. So several different types of delayed completions. And what I'll say with delayed completions, it's about the structure of them and whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve. So we do all sorts of weird and wonderful things with delayed completions. So let's have a look at extensions developments. So this was a bungalow that somebody owned. Top left was the kitchen, top right was the lounge, top middle was the dining room. Middle right was, and bottom right were 2 bedrooms. And the bathroom on the middle left and the bottom left is the master bedroom. We did a deal with the owner. We applied to a big extension on it, basically, so it ended up looking like that. The top left of the blue area, basically 4 times that to be a really nice kitchen, 8 meters squared. Did the same with the lounge. The behind the bathroom, we created an ensuite. And obviously the master bedroom became a lot larger. So great project, nearly doubling the square footage. It wasn't selling at 650. Best offer the owner had was at 580. So we want to create a win-win. I agreed to pay the owner 650. I managed to get someone to lend me 150 for the extension and 100 grand for the refurb. So in all, it was going to owe 900. Now, this property sold at 1.35 million, making a profit of just over 400 grand. I'd agreed to give the lender of the 250 25% of the profit. So they got and walked away with 100 grand. That left 300 grand profit. The vendor we agreed he was going to have half of the profit after the funder had paid for it. So 150 grand went to the vendor, 150 went to me. Basically, I made 150 grand out of nothing, or out of the deal, without putting any money into it. So I said, type of thing you can do. All this stuff's in my delayed completion video. Made a vow, nice house there. The couple loved living there, got into arrears. He'd retired and should really have moved. Couldn't afford to pay the mortgage. He only had a 300 grand mortgage. So I agreed to clear the arrears for him. And I then, after I paid the arrears, put in a planning permission. So I exchanged by paying the arrears. Property was 1,400 square foot. I took over the mortgage payments, put in a planning application. Once we got planning, we moved them into a flat. So we paid for them to rent. I spent 400 grand building a big extension on the back, going up into the loft. So the 1,400 square foot house turned into ground floor of 1,200, first floor of 1,200, and the loft area of 900. So what did we do? Gave them the ground floor. They were chuffed to bits because they wanted to stay there. And the house was all fully decorated. Again, a lot more details on my video. They kept the ground floor. We sold the first floor and the top floor for 2.2 million. We gave them 300 grand out of that. So they had 300 grand more than what they would have sold the house for in the first place. Take off our 400 grand cost. There was £1.5 million profit in this deal, and there was a plan B in case it went wrong. So this is the type of thing you can be doing if you're doing delayed completions. Delayed completion refurbishments, it's all about dealing with the estate agents. Whitehall, London estate agents. I just said to them, look, the property had been reduced down to 1.7. It started off in the 2 millions. Right in Whitehall, literally, if you looked out the window, you can see the London Eye. Looked the other direction, you can see the guards sitting on their horses. I managed to persuade the owner, or I got the estate agents to explain it, get the owner to, instead of accept the 1.7 million it was on the market for, accept it at 1.8 million. I exchanged contracts to pay the agent's fees, so he was chuffed to bits. Spent 100 grand on a refurb, so exchanged contracts with the owner, spent 100 grand on the work, sold the property for 2.32 million, and agreed to pay the estate agents quite a chunk, more than normal, for selling it. So that's why they did it, and made over 300 grand profit on that project. Jason, one of my clients, who's done exceedingly well, he came on one of my 4-day trainings. He started with 80 grand in a property that he was going to rent out. 80 grand of equity stuck in a property because it was such low yield. He'd always wanted to have a property. I persuaded him to sell it, use the 80 grand to buy other properties because he didn't have any other money, so he couldn't do anything. He bought himself a 2-bed bungalow and used his bricklayer skills to build a big extension on it, converted it into a 3-bed bungalow with a much bigger kitchen. That took him a year. He made 80 grand. Now his other project, which was interesting, was a plot development deal. It was on the market for 120 for 2 years. Wasn't really a viable project. We did nibbling with the owner. We offered him 130 grand after it was built and sold. He agreed that. We then said, look, but we need to change the planning. He agreed that. Didn't hit him all with it at the same time. We got planning changed. Jason built the property and he made 100 grand out of that. He then took his profit from both them deals and bought this in Great Yarmouth, which was the old council buildings right on the seafront. Literally, the traffic lights walk you across the road onto the beach. One thing I did get him to do is get planning to build these extra bits on the top, as the previous example you've seen. And I'm proud to say that Jason went from 80 grand of equity in a property to 1.2 million pound in the bank when all them flats had been sold in 3 years and 2 months. Now, that's some jump. I'm not saying everyone's going to be able to do it that quickly, but he's not the only of my clients who've done that type and had that type of results. So as I said, with the delayed completions, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Lynn, she found 2 deals. Deals don't always work. I funded these. So because she didn't have any money on a 50-50 basis, we paid £1 for the option to buy the plot for £250, put in planning applications, went through all the process, all the drawings, topographical surveys, knocking down some trees I needed to knock down. Thought it would go through because originally the built house was higher than the original, and that didn't go through because of that. All the drawings were done. Unfortunately, we just didn't get it through planning, and doing it the way we were doing, we were going to make 191 grand profit. Now that deal could have gone through if it got planning, and others of my clients have done similar things. I actually paid for all of the architect's fees, all that. So Lynn never spent anything. I spent 10 grand on that deal, but it would have made 191 grand. And these deals are out there, and these deals do sometimes work, but I'm trying to share you with a balance of stuff. This development, the owners had tried to put in for one property to be built. That got turned down. We thought we could get away with putting 2 in. Again, I put about 5 or 6 grand into this one. The profit on that would have been 228 grand. So some of my clients have done this type of thing successfully. I just wanted to share a balance. There was 419 grand potential profit. The only thing that didn't work was we couldn't get planning either first time or on appeal. So big learning curve. Everyone thought it was going to go through. Again, whatever the starting from scratch to get to about 3 grand cash flow per month after 6 months. It's quite regularly achieved, and a lot of my clients give up their day job after doing exactly that. 6 months doing viewings on their way home from work, on their way to work, and running their business part-time with alongside the job until they get their 3 grand a month. Again, there is a video all about that, sharing a lot more details. Obviously, we don't have time to go through everything in this in great detail. Right, where are we? Property sourcing. Sourcing property for a living. Give you some idea. Amber made 2 grand within 2 weeks of starting his sourcing business. My 2 Nickies, one in Hull, one in Liverpool, sourcing properties in Hull and in Liverpool, travelling down to London, building a clientele of buyers down there, supplying them with properties that they get from the estate agents in the local area. Both of them making around about 20 grand a month, both doing very, very well. So if you did want to become a sourcer and you followed our sourcing guide video, then that's what you could potentially be doing. So we've looked at building a portfolio, no money down, building a high yield property portfolio, portfolio, no money left in, flipping properties for profit, advanced property development, buying hotels and guest houses, delayed completions, rent to rent, property sourcing. You've all seen a very few deals very, very quickly, but hopefully it's given you enough gist of how you of whether you want to do it. Now, I believe the secret to success is to develop a millionaire mindset. If you want to succeed, you need to know what you want and why you want it. This is the goal setting bit, okay? In 2004, I decided I wanted to build a large portfolio, and I knew why. I knew my why, I knew my goal, and I knew that buying below market value was the way to do it. So once I decided and I'd mastered the system, my goal was to buy 52 properties in 52 weeks, and I managed, using the system I created, to purchase 52 properties in 48 weeks. That was my first creative strategy, and that always worked very, very well for me. How would you like to be buying 52 properties in 52 weeks? I don't think that's quite going to work now, but you can certainly buy 10 or 12 a year. My wife, my kids, the bottom 3 weren't born then. So 6 kids I've got, which are amazing. I have managed to buy myself a very nice property with a 22 grand deposit, I hope you know. Bought it with a 22 grand deposit, spent 200 grand doing it up, and it valued at 3 million. Bought it for 1.8. And then there's the toys that come with the success when you're doing things after my divorce and separation, most of these disappeared. But hey, we're getting back and we will be back. So if you like cars, then that's what you like, but different people like different things. There's no right or wrong. It's you need to do what you want to do from you. But when you do things differently, the way I was doing them, the way I'm doing them now, you can make far more money than traditional. And this type of thing is totally achievable. So what do you need in order to start profiting from these strategies? First, you need to choose the correct 2 or 3 strategies for you to maximize your profits. This is definitely not a one solution suits all. If you want success, then the most important decision is to choose the right area and the right strategies. There's no fixed perfect combination of 2 or 3 strategies. It could be anything would work for you. It's all about your details, as I said earlier. So you guys okay if I take 10 to 15 minutes to go through a very special investment offer I've put together for you? Total solution for you so you can implement and expand massively on what you've learned today. So I'd like to permission not just assume it's okay for you to offer something awesome. So let me just check in. Yeah, we're starting to get, okay, good, cool. Thank you very much. Right, so the first thing you're going to need is a complete instruction manual. Now, the 8 videos, basically each video is in itself an instruction manual for that strategy. So these 8 videos will get you going, and they'll get you going now, which is really exciting. Now, the 8 videos, £97 each, which means they're £931.20 for all 8 of them. But I'm going to do a deal for you. I want to give you a huge return on your investment. You can see how much you can make from just one deal using only one strategy. So what I'd like to do is, with the 8 videos, add on a 15-minute consultation, which I normally charge £300 plus VAT for a 15-minute consultation. So I can help you choose. The correct strategies for you. You watch the 8 videos, you choose the correct strategies. Now, 15-minute call to discuss the best 2 or 3 strategies choice for you. Your strategy choices are vital to your success, and it depends on the following, as I mentioned before: how much time you've got to put into your property business, your cash pot, where you live, what you want to achieve. It's very important that you get that bit dead right. So, special offer for you tonight, just on the 8 strategy videos. I'm sure you'll love this special offer. There we go. You can get all of the strategy videos that are available to buy online on my website for £931.20 for all 8 tonight, and they're individually at £97 plus VAT. Tonight, a very special offer to help you get going. I want more people to be out there doing this, okay? All 8 videos you can have for a very special £97 plus VAT for all 8 of them. Now, all you need to do is click, and that'll take you to a credit card payment where you can make the payment, and then you'll get them delivered to you within the next hour or so. So click here. You can get all 8 videos. Now, bearing in mind, we've gone through each of the strategies. We probably spent 4 or 5 minutes on each, maximum, maybe a few more minutes on each. Many of the deals I've mentioned are talked through in much more detail on these videos. Plus, there's a lot more other deals included. You can learn all about how you can be making great profits from these strategies. Now, when you invest in that £97, I will also include a complimentary 15-minute strategy consultation for you when you've finished. So to help you get going with the correct strategies. So watch the videos. When you've watched the videos, so buy them now. Once you've watched them, text me or drop me an email, and my text number is 07768 594949. And then what I'll do is I'll contact you. Just text me to say, I've watched all the videos. Can I have my 15-minute strategy consultation, please, Glenn? And we'll book an appointment, and I'll help you choose the best of these 8 strategies for you, the best combination. So my mobile again is 07768 594949. Drop me a text once you've watched the videos. The videos will be with you in about 1 hour. You're getting all 8 strategy videos, normally 931.20. You're getting 1 strategy consultation, normally 360. Total price, normally 1,291 for only £97 plus that. All you need to do, click on the bar on the side and you'll be taken to a payment plan where you can do that. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the chat box now and have a look if anybody's got any questions. Please feel free. It most certainly can, Steve. What I would do is, if you've got cash, is watch the videos. I'm pretty sure there's going to be people that watch the videos. I've got other clients who would work with you on a JV. You put the money in, they do the work. Mortgageability might be a little bit different. If you're based overseas, you might struggle to get mortgages on them, but many of the strategies don't need mortgages, as you can see. So you just need to fund projects that people with no money go and find. And there's nearly always about 10 people with no money to every 1 person with money. So no, it would be easy for me to hook you up. Sorry, you said you can't hear the John also said this is great. Yusuf said, is there other mortgage expresses? There's processes for doing this stuff that gets around the mortgage express system. So, end of the questions. Just to recap, okay, you have got an amazing opportunity to buy these videos. There is a lot of experience, a lot of work gone into these videos. They are probably somewhere close to 8 hours long between all of them. And when you've watched them, it's going to open your eyes to the things, the opportunities that are out there that aren't standard thinking. I was doing missile guided systems, rocket science stuff when I was working for Marconi Avionics. So you've converted rocket science into financial engineering, and this is what you get. There are many of my clients getting absolutely amazing results from using these strategies. 92 millionaires to date, quite a lot of people getting very close to it. I'm expecting quite an influx of millionaire clients over the next 6 months. So I'm going to say thank you very much for everybody. I'm going to leave this up for you in order for you to be able to buy it if you still wish to. Why wouldn't you? It is amazing value, £97 plus that. You are going to pick up a lot of tips for that £97. Watch once you bought it, the second presentation. I'm here to help you accelerate your success to do far better using my help than if you tried to do things on your own, and look forward to helping you. Take care. Have a great evening. Any feedback, glenn@glenarmstrong.com, greatly appreciated. Take care and have a great evening.